host for today's session. Thank you, Dolly. Welcome to Pukar Foundation's Wellness Dialogue session, and today we are having it on parenting through the teen years. It's a self-care guide for parents. I'm sure some of you already know we have been doing this every month for over a year now. We bring topics related to mental health, mental wellness, like empathy, listening, suicide prevention, grief. We had toxic relationships recently. The objective is not just to, talk about these topics, but also to leave with practical things, tips that you can use in your daily life for yourself and for others to get through challenging times and increase our mental wellness. Before we jump into the session, I would like to take a few minutes to talk about Pukar Foundation. For those of you who are new to Pukar's sessions or the work that we do, we are a volunteer driven emotional support helpline. It's completely free, confidential, non judgmental emotional support. I think the value of that is something that we cannot put a tag on. We all have been through times when we need someone to, just listen to us. And that's exactly what we do here through our thoroughly trained and very willing volunteers who try to listen to you and just understand how you're feeling. So if you know anyone who might benefit from this kind of a service, do share our contacts, which Dolly will put in the chat during the session. We currently operate from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day. So, like I said, please share this information as far and wide as possible. It would really help us, and you never know who. Right? Before I introduce the top speaker of the day, which is Sahana, thank you firstly, Sahana, for being here. I'm so excited
Thank
that
you,
you're here
Anu.
today. So, before I introduce Sahana, just some housekeeping. We will be recording the session. It is going to go on our YouTube. So in case you want to revisit it or if you've missed the session or want to share it, please go ahead and do that. We will have a Q&A session at the end for the last 10 or 15 minutes. I bet there's going to be a lot of questions. If this topic is something that I think we'll have a lot of unique questions that come up from you. So we will have time for that for sure. And during the end, we will share a very, very short feedback form, which we would really appreciate if you could fill. It just helps us to know what kind of things, what kind of topics you would like to hear in these sessions and how this is going for you. Yeah. So with that, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Sahana. She's a dear, dear friend and my mentor during my journey of learning about children and adolescents. So I don't think there's anybody better to speak about this topic than her today. Sahana, thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Anu.
Sahana's mission is to, it's such a heavy mission. It's to make people happy and successful. I mean, what a beautiful mission. She has had the chance to see people at their most vulnerable when, after her hospital management, when she worked at Apollo Hospital. She has, after that, worked in corporate in HR, education, and student counseling. She is currently the founder of Creopal and also a full-time counselor, mentor, and life coach. I know I will go to her for any kind of questions I have, and she's always willing to help. She works with adolescents and teenagers and helps them overcome social, emotional, and behavioral challenges. She's an active volunteer with Legacy School and helps the kids who come under the RTE Act. She believes in the adage, no child left behind. And that is, I think, the underlying pillar for Creopal, the institute, the organization that she started, which endeavors to help middle school and high schoolers to cope with academic stress, social stress, peer pressure, aspirations, goals. The challenges that teenagers face these days. So she helps with all of that. And Creopal's individual coaching plans have been adopted by many middle schoolers and high schoolers across the world. So I know she's really living up to her mission of one, no child left behind. Most of all, I know her personally, and I know she's an active, hands-on mom of a teenager herself. So she really does get to see both sides of the coin. She gets to know the core and essence of the problems of the teenagers as well as the parents. So we are so glad that you're here to talk to us about this today, Sahana. So we
Thank
are,
you. Thank you.
welcome again. Yes. So we're here today, Sahana, to talk about challenges of being a parent to a teenager. You know, a
Mm,
decade or so ago, when I was a new mom, everyone told me, first year of being a parent is difficult. You're just getting
mm,
used to it. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Still getting used to taking care of a newborn baby. Then they said, okay, no, the terrible twos, they're really going to have a lot of tantrums and, they're going to have defined mood swings and this and that. And I was like, okay, I get that. Maybe they're also figuring out their world. But nobody told me that these terrible twos turn into terrible threes and then soon terrible fours and terrible fives. And, it just goes on. And the most terrible of them all, of course, is the terrible teens. But that's absolutely not to say that, parenting is not a beautiful journey. I think watching your children grow into, bloom into really their own person and an individual making their own decisions and charting their own path has is so beautiful to watch. But the lows of parenting, oh, the lows, yes. So that's what we are here for, to get your help with,
yes.
Sahana.
Yeah,
I'm going to ask you the most basic question as we start. What
sure.
are parents what are parents of teenagers feeling and what are their challenges according to you in your experience?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Anu. Thank you, Dolly. And thank you, Pukar Foundation, for having me. And I want to thank everybody for joining in on a Sunday afternoon at like 4 o'clock when they'd rather be, taking an afternoon nap. So thank you so much for being here. And I think a very important question, Anu, that you've asked me is what are parents of teens going through and what really are their challenges, right? I mean, such an important question because I'm sure all of us as parents here go through that every single day, especially if you're a parent to a teenager. So I think first, before going into what challenges, the parents face, I think I want to look at it from the context of how parenting itself has changed and evolved over the years, because that will help us put in perspective what are the real challenges that we face, right? Because if you understand the essence of how parenting has evolved, I think it's just a lot easier to understand what challenges we're facing. I think parenting today itself has changed. I mean, I'm sure when you compare it to how we were parented by our parents, I think it's just evolved to such a large extent and it's so different, right? It's a hard reality, and I think it's important for parents to accept that fact, and not keep telling their children, especially their teens, when I was your age, because it just doesn't cut it anymore. According to them, yeah, you were at that age, it was like, the primitive time. So please don't talk about that. That's like a common, response that we get from all of our children, right? I'm sure about that. And I think the world itself has changed, and especially in the last couple of years, ever since COVID. So teens of today were actually pre-teens, during COVID time, and that has changed dramatically and has just created a lot of havoc. And I think the first thing is to accept that yes, there is, change, and the world has changed, parenting has changed, your children have changed, so I think the first thing that would be best is to start accepting the fact. And I think everything, right? Right from the way we socialize to the way we interact, everything has changed over time. And I think once you accept that change, I think putting yourself in the lens of what your teen is going through, looking at it from their world, right? Especially with the overload of information in today's times, in terms of social media, in terms of just the peer pressure, the comparison, the competition with not just academics, but your uh, general pressure in all areas of life, right? Starting from your competitive exams like your JEE, CET, NEET, CLAT, whatever. I mean, the hundreds of competitive exams that children are actually taking. So I think there's the expectations also from the children, has changed. And I think it's important for parents to seek to understand all of this, right? Because I think if you don't know what your child is going through, if you don't know um, what is it that's going on in their world, then obviously that is going to create a lot of anxiety for you. It's going to create a lot of frustration. It's going to create a lot of helplessness because you just don't know what is happening in their life. You don't know what is happening in their world. And when you don't know that, there's this whole sense of you're like totally unaware of what is going on in their world. And when you're not communicating, that's again because of a lack of communication or whatever other reasons they may be. But because there is no communication, or because you're not trying to understand what's going on in the life or in the world of your teen, then that results in all of the challenges of feeling anxious, feeling helpless, feeling vulnerable, feeling just basically a sense of overwhelm. And that's exactly what is happening to parents today. Even with all the parents, with all the children that I counsel, I think the most important thing that I always the context that I always set at the beginning of these sessions is that I must constantly interact with the parents, because no amount of work that I do with the child will be fruitful if there is no change in the home environment. And that's where the parents and the children need to be in tune with each other. And I think that is very, very important. And I think also a lot of us, like parents here present today, I think we're all in such high pressure jobs, right? So that at some point you want your child to build those skills. You want them to be able to have those skill sets, to be able to get into similar jobs, or whatever more high pressure jobs. And all of this again results in the whole, so it's like a vicious cycle. So that again results in anger, in frustration. There's a lack of communication. Then you end up comparing your teen with other children, or the siblings who probably are different. So I think it's important to be able to be on the same page, and that will only happen if you communicate, because we must understand that our teens are going through a lot of physical and hormonal changes, especially puberty time and all of that, right? And while we are only sometimes seeing the external changes, body changes, physical appearance, all of that, what we don't realize is the internal angst that they're going through. There's just so much of internal changes that are happening, which obviously are not visible even to parents, unless you actually make the effort to sit and understand what is happening with them. And I think the key here is that there are two worlds changing at the same time: the world for parents and adults, and the world for children. So it's not a blame game. I think it's important to know that all of this is a very natural, and it's it has to progress this way. And this as a result can take an absolute emotional toll on the health of the parent. And sometimes you just feel so angry, feel so inadequate sometimes, and there's just a sense of overwhelm. And I think that is like the important challenge that parents of today are facing. And this is what I see when I speak to parents, also when I'm counseling children. And
Thank you, Sana. That's a whole lot of things, right? I mean, the last few lines that you said really struck a chord for me, especially, feeling inadequate. I think, I don't know about everybody else, but I know that given all of these pressures from not just external world, the children, we are kind of the sandwich generation. We are trying to fulfill
absolutely,
expectations of, the older generation. It just doesn't ever seem to be enough, right? That's one big, I think, feeling that teenage parents, not teenage parents, parents
absolutely,
of teenagers are going through. And another one that you said was so beautiful, that um, I think because we don't understand their world so much, we're feeling alienated. That's the word that's
absolutely,
coming to my mind. Right? We're feeling
absolutely,
alienated.
yes.
Like, I don't know what is going on. I cannot understand drip and flex and, skibidi. And it takes me a while to get a hold of all of these. While I'm figuring out, the person, I'm also trying to figure out the language. I'm trying to figure out what their world is going to look like in the future.
Absolutely.
We talked about stressful jobs. I think some of them are very clear they don't want to do what we are doing. And for us to come to terms with that also takes a while. So there's just so much going on, I think, with parents,
Yeah. Absolutely. You can't live
having
your
to
dreams through your child, right? I mean, that is
right.
something that it's a hard fact that a lot of parents need to accept. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a total shift in perspective from where how we might have been brought up. So we're just kind of
Absolutely.
learning the ABCs as we go along. So thank you. That's a really good, I think, overall structure for where parents are standing right now, right? But I'm wondering why this is the case. I mean, parenting has happened over so many years. Like everyone has parented, and our parents seem to tell us we've also parented teenagers. It's not been such a big challenge. What is up with you guys, right? What's so special about you? So, what is changing? Why is it so challenging these days?
Yeah, I think today's parents have teens who are much older than our parents on an average, right? Because you're having children later or whatever, right? And parents are going through their own midlife crisis. So if you look at it, it's like a double whammy. Your teen is going through their own set of challenges while the parents are going through midlife crisis and midlife, challenges. So there's, both parents and, children are going through their own set of challenges at the same time. And obviously the parent teen dynamic, right? A lot of, adolescents who come, because I specifically work with teens, I think a lot of the parents come to me and they say, yeah, we're always at loggerheads. We're constantly, arguing or think that again goes back to my, earlier, point where I spoke about not trying to understand the world of children, because all of this comes because you're not able to understand and there's no communication, right? Otherwise, why would you not, just have like a healthy conversation, and why couldn't it be normal? Right. So I think peer pressure for teens, especially, is at its absolute peak during this time. I mean, peer pressure is there even like for a 3-year-old, 2-year-old, 4-year-old. But I think where it really peaks is during the adolescent and the teenage phase. I'm sure, parents here who are parents of, teens will agree with me that, you'll always find your teen coming and telling you, yeah, but you just don't understand. I mean, that's like a very common thing, right? Yeah, but you'll never get it, ma, or you'll never get it, dad. That's like a constant thing that we hear in all our houses, right? So for them, parents should not be looked at as weird in their circle. They should not be, they're probably regarded as being out of sync with, time. So it's very important, like you were telling, right? When you talk about flex and this and that, I think it's so important to kind of learn a little bit of lingo to be able to speak their language, because then they know that, okay, you are with it, you also understand what they're going through. And they call even their parents bro nowadays. I mean, that's the kind of talk that we hear at home, right?
There
And
was
I think
sorry to interrupt you, but there was
sure, sure.
a Insta post that I was sharing with my daughter yesterday. I was like, it said mom, formerly, and it says bro, formerly known as mom.
Mom, yes. I saw that too, and that's so true,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I'm sure all of us kind of have, especially if you have, I think it's just not limited to like boys. I think even girls use a lot of that bro, nowadays. And I think that's a very common thing. And I think one important thing, Anu, that has really changed is that social fabric in India has changed, right, over the times. And what I mean when I say the social fabric has changed is that um, families are not the same as how we used to be when we were growing up. So, there were joint families. And even if you were in a nuclear family, you had so many aunts, so many uncles, extended family, cousins, grandparents, great grandparents, grandparents, siblings, so many of them around, with you for support. So the support system was, fantastic at that time, right? So now that everybody is kind of all over the place, and half the people are abroad or whatever, so time zone different, this that you don't the closeness that we used to have with our cousins or with our aunts and uncles when we were growing up, that's completely changed. So there is no connection basically with a lot of with family. And I think as a result, what happens is all the onus is on the parents. So the parents, have to be their parent first, of course, should be a friend, then should be a best friend, then they should be their aunt, their uncle, their, I think, chauffeur plus cook plus everything, right? Playmate and confidant and mentor, philosopher. I think n number of roles rolled into one, right? And I think that is what is happening. Because earlier, when we had a problem, when we were growing up, we could go and talk to so many people. We were so close to our cousins, to our aunts, uncles, and that doesn't exist. Cousins hardly meet these days. You don't have anybody to kind of, you don't have like an extended family, or like, even a second cousin or an aunt and uncle whom you could go and, talk to. Right. And I think because of that, the toll on the parents is a lot more. Right. The load
Oh,
on the parents is a lot more. And that, of course, results in, so many challenges of its own.
yeah.
So, yeah. So that's very important.
If I can just add something there, Sana, when you were
Sure.
saying, what was coming to my mind is there's also some kind of pressure we feel to not talk about our parenting issues. It's like
Yes.
almost a judgment on you. Now, if I talk about, I'm struggling with my kids. If I say that to someone, it's like, you are not a good parent. And I don't want to seem like a not good
Yeah.
parent. So I don't ask for help, unlike before.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel like I need to do all of this myself. All these
Yeah. Yeah.
15 roles that you mentioned, I need to do all of this myself. I need to do all of this perfectly. And I
Absolutely.
cannot ask for help.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
mean,
And I
just
think,
saying
yeah.
that is overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think we don't realize that it's okay to ask for help. Asking for help is never a sign of weakness. And I think that's something that I really want to reiterate to all parents here, because I know in the initial stages, you want to be like this, superwoman or a super mom or a super human kind of a person, whether it's your a dad or a mom, and you want to feel that you have, like, it's okay not to have everything sorted out. I mean, sometimes the beauty lies there, right? I mean, not to have everything
Oh my
figured
God,
and
you can
sorted.
say that
And
again.
yeah, so
You
I
can
think
say
that
that
that is
again.
important. Yeah. So that's important for everybody to understand that it's okay not to have things sorted, much as if we would like to have things in our control. Sometimes it's okay not to have, not to know everything and do everything at the same time.
Absolutely. And do you also feel that, that as a parent of a teenager, the role is kind of shifting for us as well? Not just that we're doing 10,000 different roles in their
Mhm.
life,
Right.
but also till a certain point, let's say 9, 10, we are kind of literally their caregivers. Like everything they'll come to us and they are little babies and all of that. But the role shifts from there to becoming more of a, guide. Like I'm seeing it like, in the bowling lanes, they have that gutters up, right?
Right.
So we have to
Right.
be those, railings where they have the space to move, but, we are there to support them. I think that shift
Absolutely.
becomes very difficult for the parents
Very
to
true. They're
do.
not able to accept it. So it all comes, I think, with acceptance. And like I said, at the beginning of my, the session, where I said that, it's very important to, I mean, I know it's a hard reality, but unless, you start accepting the changes, then you're going to be in constant denial that everything is like, okay, it's only going to be my way. This is how I have to parent. If you do not evolve with the times, and if you do not, as your child is growing, you also need to evolve, and you also need to, parenting also has to evolve over the times. So that is something that, I think all of us must keep in mind.
Yeah, so the classic problem of how much to control and how much to let go. Oh
I
my
think
God,
it's,
yes.
yeah, yeah, it's difficult, no doubt, but I think,
Yeah.
the more you communicate and just create that gentle ambience of wanting to, of healthy conversations, with your teens or with your children starting at an early age,
Yeah.
I think then, it's good. I don't think there's any reason to worry.
Mhm. And you were talking about peer pressure for teenagers. I think there's peer pressure for parents also.
Absolutely, because you want to host the
Yeah.
best birthday party, you want to
Oh
get the
yeah,
child the best clothes or the gadget, take them on the best of holidays. You
yeah,
you name it, and in the world of instant gratification, I think the child may be thinking about something now, about wanting something now. The parent would have already gotten it yesterday for them. So that's how I
yes.
think all
We
of
are
us
the
are
Blinkit and
operating.
Zepto.
We are the Blinkit era. Absolutely, yeah, it's difficult. I mean, all of us are guilty of that. Why just blame the children?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think
Yes,
parents, I mean, what I wanted to really point out was we are also facing that pressure, and recognizing that is also important to, as we move to
yes,
the next step to, what are the things that we can do to support ourselves.
absolutely,
We have
totally.
to at least accept that we are falling for the trap of peer pressure. Everybody in
Absolutely.
the class has a phone, child is 6 years old, but I still have to give them a phone, because peer
Absolutely.
pressure, right? I may not
Yeah,
believe it, but I still have to give.
No, no,
So,
but there
I
are
mean,
different opinions. Yeah, so there are, I mean, this is a very common thing that I get a lot of cases that I
yeah,
get with, typical, you get the phone and then after that there's, like,
What?
obviously they're, not, they're distracted and there's stuff like that. So, there's insane amount of issues that are going through. And I feel that a lot of them with just conversations between the parents and child and setting some healthy boundaries at an early stage in life, because the foundation has to be laid earlier. You can't like expect, suddenly when your child is 13, to start saying, okay, these are the rules, these are the boundaries. They're definitely, and especially at that age, they're definitely not going to listen to you. So instead, what needs to really happen is that right from early on in life, you know, that the boundaries or the conversations or what are the expectations and all of that needs to be kind of set. And I think that is very important.
yeah, absolutely. And that is what you just said is kind of scary also because, if I am a parent of 13-year-old or 14-year-old, I'm beginning to feel like, oh my God, did I miss the bus? Is it not possible to do that anymore?
Yeah.
So I would like
Yes.
you to address that, but also in general, what can parents really do to overcome these challenges and stop feeling so overwhelmed and burdened and sandwiched and alienated and, rejected?
I know. Just look at all the strong words that we have there, Anu, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it
Yeah,
almost makes it feel like parenting is like a chore and there's nothing enjoyable about it. But obviously, it's far
yeah,
from that. I mean, it has its ups
absolutely.
and downs, and we wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world. But
Yeah,
having said that, like I said, I think as far as challenges are concerned, I think the first thing is to again acknowledge what you're feeling and learn to expect. Try to understand what your child is going through. I think that's like the best, the first thing that I would tell all parents. And please understand that you can't live your dreams through your child, especially for today's generation of kids. That is just not done. It will not, it'll backfire at some point, and I can tell you that with a lot of cases that I'm dealing with currently. Okay, and I think remember that each child is unique, and that every child has their own journey, and they will figure it out eventually. Right? I know it's difficult as parents, even as a mom to a 15-year-old. Even I would say that sometimes it's difficult to let go and say, "Okay, let her just do whatever she wants." But I know in reality it's far from that. But I think if we understand and try and see what they also want, I think they'll be happier in the long run, rather than imposing what we want them to do. And I think for parents, very important to seek help. And please remember, it's okay to feel overwhelmed. Parenting doesn't come with a rule book. It's a constant work in progress for each one of us. And uh, each situation is different. So the way you handle each situation, that itself is different. And that itself is a learning experience for all of us, right? And I think don't constantly keep giving diktats to your children. Don't constantly keep advising them, because then they're just going to switch off. Instead of that, I think what I would tell you is to kind of turn it around into having more healthy conversations, by creating the right ambience, by creating a nurturing environment at home, uh, both parents spending equal amount of time having more meaningful conversations with your children at home. um, I think something that will foster healthy communication, I think that is very important. And for parents, please show yourself some self compassion. Don't be overtly hard on yourself, because a lot of the moms, whom I know are constantly like, oh my God, I didn't do this. Oh my God, I didn't do that. I used to be like that. And it's taken me a while to get here, and where I'm like, okay, if I haven't done something, I mean, I haven't done it. It's like that. But it's taken me a while, to get there where I, don't feel bad about taking time off or, going out with my friends or anything. And I think that's so important, because you just come back as a happier parent, whether it's for a mom or for a dad, irrespective. I think that is something that you need to kind of do, because I think you need to enjoy the process of parenting. You can't make it seem like like such a chore, right? I mean, you've decided to have kids. I think it's wonderful to kind of parent your kids and enjoy the process. And a lot of times what happens is, because we're constantly stressed about, okay, they have to do this, put them in multiple classes, this, that, everything. I think you just this the joy of parenting is like completely taken away. And that's something that I want people to kind of focus on. And that will happen only if your cup is full, you are in a happy space, and mentally you're okay, and you are then able to give it more than your 100% to your child, especially your teenager, because all they want you to do is to listen to them. That's it. The rest of it, trust me, will actually fall into place. And I think few important things that I would like to point out here, Anu, is that connect with your child before you correct, because a lot of the times we are looking at correcting our children all the time, right? And that's like a instant thing that just comes out from all of us. And I mean, I think that's how we are all wired. So, if anything happens, we are like already always ready to go into advice mode. So instead of that, the correction can happen later, the advice can happen later, but first connect with your child. I think that is super important. And seek to understand your child rather than your child understanding you, always. And the last thing I would like to mention here is respond before you react. How many times do all of us just react when your child comes and tells you, when your teen comes and tells you something like, you are always doing this, you don't know, this is how you always behave? Sounds familiar, right? So a lot of us do that. So I think, much as it's difficult, I think with practice and, over time, I think, it just kind of gets better if you learn to respond, because then you're also feeling, your blood pressure is not rising, and that you're at a stage where, you're able to understand and then give, put across your point of view to your child. So I think that is, very, very important. And a couple of other things, Anu, I think when you asked me how should parents, apart from all of this, cope with the challenges, right? Because we see it as so much of, we just see that so many parents themselves are burnt out at the end of the day, because they are managing, they're also working, both parents are working, sometimes they don't even have time for children. So as a result, when they come, the tempers are, flying high, and there's just a lot of anxiety and stress in the home environment. So I think what parents need to start, for all of us, is to start doing, is to start taking care of our own well-being first, like what I mentioned, right? So it could be because the support system that we had earlier on in life is not, unfortunately, not there right now, what I spoke about. So I think taking care of your own well-being, and that starts with your own marriage, which is the foundation, right? Uh, if there is a problem and that foundation is not strong, that will eventually lead to a lot of other problems. So I think taking care of your own physical health, your mental health, developing an interest outside of work, spiritual. So understanding what is the role of each of these elements in your life without actually over indexing on anything. You don't have to like obsess about one thing and say, okay, I'm going to do this, do that. Be flexible, but also have things that, you generally contribute to your overall mental and emotional well-being. I think that is very, very important. And parents should also see, we're always looking at how, what can I do for my child? What will they do? They'll get into college after school. They'll, this is the thing. You like literally have their whole life mapped out for them. So where is the novelty for the kids in actually deciding and figuring out how to go about their life? That just doesn't exist anymore, right? So I think for parents, you need to create, I think all of us need to create a support system of our own. And I think also look at our own personal growth, because just because we're looking after our children, it doesn't mean that we keep regressing, right? So also constantly start doing things that, where you're upskilling your own, knowledge, your whatever it is that you want to do in life. I think just to create that sense of balance, that is very important. And I think one most important thing is, I think a lot of rather over information on social media as how to be the ideal parent, and goes back to my first point about telling everybody how inadequate that makes us feel, right? Especially if you go through your Instagram reels or whatever, or something on parenting, you see a famous parent blogger, or something. I mean, you will like just feel like absolutely down in the dumps, and you think that you're literally good for nothing. I mean, that's how social media is created to make everybody feel, right? Like ours is not the perfect life, so we really need to do so much more to strive to be that perfect parent. But please remember, there's no such thing as an ideal parent. Each one of us need to develop our own toolkit. So what works for my child may not work for Anu's daughter or her son, right? I mean, so I think that is important, is understanding your child and developing your own toolkit, and to also know that these problems or challenges are not just going to be during your teen years, right? It's the foundation. In fact, this is just the beginning. So if you set the foundation well, then you won't have problems later on in life. So I think these are some of the ways I would, tell parents to build basically inner strength. I think that is what is important on.
Thank you, Sana. What I'm hearing you say is children are not a project. Firstly, I think,
Absolutely.
parents, yeah, as parents, we have to realize that and be okay with, they are not our project. And just the fact that, we have so many of us here really reminds us that we are not alone in this journey, right? I mean,
So
each
true.
one of us is facing, the issues of feeling inadequate. We may be doing great, actually. We may be really good parents, and children may be really happy, all of
Yeah.
that. But for some reason, we are being very harsh on ourselves and, feeling all of these negative words and forgetting
Emotions.
about the beauty of parenting.
Absolutely.
I have to remember that it's okay to be imperfect. We're just humans. And this is one of the things that we had in one of the previous sessions
Mhm.
for Pokar Wellness, where the speaker had said it's okay for a parent to be vulnerable in front of a child. It's okay to cry or say, "Oh my God, I made a mistake." Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what makes them connect. And like you rightly said, connect before correct. So when they know that you also make mistakes, you're
Yeah.
not some, perfection walking around the house, which they're supposed to emulate, which they feel like they can never do. Then it becomes real. Everything becomes real around you. It's
I mean,
okay to
directly
be
you're
imperfect.
sending wrong signals to your children, right? I mean,
Exactly. And then they're beginning to feel inadequate. And then, it's just
absolutely.
contagious after that. Um,
That's
and
true.
so beautifully said that I need to have a life outside of this. This is not my only role in life. I play multiple roles, and they all fill
Yes.
my cup, right? And
Absolutely.
I can only give as much as I have. So beautiful reminder to do that, to take that time off, whatever it is, friends or by yourself or whatever that is. Put on your oxygen mask first, right? Help yourself
Absolutely.
first. I think
Yes,
that's a
absolutely.
very difficult one for parents. I think we are just, conditioned to feel like everyone else comes first
Mhm.
before us. But it really makes sense when you actually practice it. You see the impact it has. So
Very
thank
true.
you so much for saying that. Like I think this really puts it all together for me as to the shift in mindset that I need to have to be in a calmer space as a parent of a teenager. I think that's
Absolutely.
what I would say to summarize all of that, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so if I were to ask you just, three or four
Mhm.
very quick, practical, real things that we can do as parents
Okay.
to bring all of this into our lives, all that we spoke about right now, what would those three or four things be?
Okay. So I think first, I mean, I would tell parents try and be a lighthouse parent to your teen, especially. And what that really means is be a guiding force and a source of, just somebody quietly, guiding your child like the lighthouse, to your teens. Because when you have, a child or a teen, you are a coach, right? You are like a coach, and coaches never play in the game, right? What do? They kind
Wow.
of they
Right.
can give you advice, they can probably cheer you on, they can support you, they can watch you go out on the field, but then you can't play for them. You can't play for that child. So that is something
Beautifully
that
said.
you need to be like a lighthouse parents. Build more meaningful connections with your child, which I kind of already stressed on earlier, because you must understand that your teen is on this roller coaster ride. And as a parent, your duty is you can't get them off the roller coaster, but what you can do instead is to hold their hand while they are on that roller coaster, right? And I think some of the practical, just three things that I would, kind of like to tell everybody here is that one is, of course, connect before you correct, and indulge in a hobby for all of us parents. And I think have a life outside of your kids. Don't obsess and micromanage every single thing that they do, because that's going to create again a sense of overwhelm, sense of anxiety, sense of frustration, and everything else, and then you're constantly going to be at loggerheads. I think giving each other the required space is very, very important, more so during the teenage years. And remember to take some time off for yourself, because at the core, self care is not selfish at all. In fact, like I said, if you fill your cup first, trust me, the amount, you're just going to be so much happier, and you're going to be able to do and have much more healthy conversations, with your children. Whether you're starting from a young age, and especially during the teenage years, because they want to listen to, they want you to be able to reason with them, if it's like a no or if it's a yes, whatever it is, right? To have that kind of healthy conversations is something that's very, very important, that all of us must look at. And I think the other most important thing is, this is something that I had read and really struck a chord with me, is about having evaluation days, with your kids. It could be once a quarter or whatever, where you get feedback from your kids on how you can be a better parent. What is going on wrong, that you would like me to correct, and what is it that you want me to do. Maybe the child will say, yeah, maybe spending more quality time with me, don't be on your phone when you're with me, or maybe just listen to me and don't judge my choices, whatever it is, right? So have that honest kind of feedback thing, maybe once a quarter or something, because that will ensure that you understand your children better, and ask with the intent to actually listen and not with the intent to reply. Because that's the immediate thing. They say, no, 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 I'll do this. Okay, what is it? Genuinely, you should want to make that difference, to them. So at work, all of us have, right, what is this called? You have this thing of, being, you have this performance appraisal. So you have, weekly, meetings with your bosses and stuff like that, right? And you get these performance reviews and all that done in the corporate setup. So I think similarly with your children, I think have something like a quarterly, like an evaluation, day or something with them. Take them out, spend a little time with them, and I'm sure it'll create, a much healthier and a stronger bond between you and your teen, right? I mean, that is very important, because at the teenage age, you can't take them out to play and stuff like that. Maybe, of course, you can play a sport and stuff, but I think just to try and understand what they are, going through, and getting that honest feedback, so you can actually work on that feedback. And that is where they will begin to trust you more, and they know that you actually care for their well-being, and you're not just saying things to, because sometimes, as by virtue of being in that place of the power of, being a parent, we feel that it's either our way or the highway. No, it's not like that, right? So it's not just because I'm the parent, I have everything figured out and I know everything. No, I think understanding and trying to see where they come from, you'll be amazed at the kind of thing. They're not going to be frivolous and say, no, this or that, and, I want you to get me this. You'll actually have deeper conversations with your teen, and you will understand how you can be a better parent. I think these would be my three practical tips, I think, for all of us to maintain our sanity, Anu, as parents.
Oh, wow. Anything to
Teens.
maintain my sanity. Thank you. I want to add one more there, especially given the heavy words that we've used, is to
Mhm.
remind ourselves of the wins that we've had. You
Yeah.
know, there might be small things that we are doing right also.
Mhm.
We're not doing everything wrong for sure. I mean, our kids are growing up as good little people who are going to
Yeah,
become, responsible adults. So we must be doing something right. Recognize that also. Pay
absolutely.
attention to that as well.
Yes,
Don't fall prey for the missing tile where we are always looking at what we are doing less of or wrong or not enough of. Um,
very true.
and and for what you said about much earlier about not wanting to live our dreams through them, I think the one thing that I do, Sahana, is I'm just really curious how their life is going to shape up. I think it really excites me. So it's that control versus letting go.
Letting go.
It's a very fine balance, but that curiosity helps. Like, what would happen if I let go? Where would their life go? Versus, I want it to go exactly like this.
You can't.
That
Yeah.
curiosity really helps me, let things be.
Let that things, yeah, let
It's
things
okay.
be.
It's all right.
Absolutely.
Just don't go.
Totally. Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I want to remind all of us. here. I'm sure all of us are parents, and that's why we are here. It is such a beautiful journey. I think every journey has its challenges. This one may be a little bit more because of the responsibility and I like the word you use, the power that it carries. Um, it might feel a little bit more, but it is a beautiful journey. Let's not forget that in the midst of all of these heavy feelings and words that we surround it with. Thank you so much, Sahana. I do want to open the floor for
Sure.
questions. And there are many.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Uh, but before that, Dolly, if you want to share the feedback form while the questions are going on, you can take 2 minutes to just fill that feedback form for us. It's a very short form. And now the floor is all yours. Feel free to raise your hand and unmute yourself for questions. And it looks like the evaluation is something that is something that is very new for people. I've never heard that before, having a feedback or performance appraisal sort of with
Sort
your
of for
kids.
your children, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful tip. Thank you so much for that. Any questions that you all have for
Yeah, or
Sahana?
anything that you all want to share also. I mean, it just doesn't have to be questions, but anything
Yeah,
that you'd like to share is also welcome. We have another 10 minutes or so,
yeah.
10, 11
And
minutes. So,
while people are thinking of their questions, there was something that I asked you earlier, which is something that I'm sure we have in our minds. Like, we are already now in the where our children are teenagers. Oh, I haven't built that connection before. Now
mhm.
have I missed the bus? How do I do
Yeah.
that now?
Okay. So I think, it's not that just because you missed the bus that everything is lost and you can't rebuild stuff, because I think it's your own child at the end of the day. So I think just being conscious and accepting the fact that okay, I didn't do certain things when maybe it was meant to be done. But having said that, I think just starting to build and work on that connection, start by having the conversation with your child and admitting that, you know what, maybe I should have done this, or I wasn't there for you when you needed, me, I was maybe busy with work. And I think when you show that vulnerable side, as a parent to your child, I think they're also, understanding that, hey, yeah, it's okay. I mean, my parents also can, make mistakes. So, it's fine. So I think trying to build that connection and have that meaningful conversation and being vulnerable is a good place to start off. And I think after that, it's fairly simple, because at the end of the day, it's your own child. So being, trying to, understand, what they want, and trying to make things, or pick up from where we left. I think that is what is important, and I don't think that's going to be so difficult.
That's wonderful, Sarah.
It's
And that
never too
gives,
late. Yeah,
yeah, that's quite, that gives a sense of hope, that we haven't missed our chance of
absolutely.
fixing this. And one thing that I generally do also, with in this space is
Mhm.
ask, ask your children for help. Ask the teenager for help. They're going to love it.
Oh
Like they
yes.
are in a space they are in a space where they want to be independent. They feel like they know everything. They want to
Totally.
contribute, and you're not letting them. Asking
That's
them for help, I felt, is the greatest way to build connection with them.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I do that sometimes with my daughter, and it's really surprising,
Yeah,
at the kind of answers that children come up with, right? I mean,
yeah.
it just puts things in perspective for you. Sometimes you may be just over analyzing and over stressing something to death, but one simple thing of something so practical, it's like
Yeah.
literally words of wisdom that come out, and I'm glad you brought out that point, Anu.
Thank you, Sana. And Archana S says on chat, she read somewhere that teenagers have fully developed accelerator and underdeveloped brakes.
Yes, that's because I think the prefrontal cortex is one of the last parts of the brains to develop. So you're going to have a lot of, that's the one that has, for planning, prioritizing, basic, the logical part of, making decisions. All of that is there. So maybe that's why. But yeah, thanks, Anya, for bringing that up. Yeah. Okay. So I think there's one question.
Sharanya has a question as well. This is more around parenting rather than for care for parents, but I see why she would ask, how do we get them to help around the house without sulking? Because, like you said, Parents
Yeah.
are doing 10,000 things, so we would get like to get all the help we can.
Yeah,
So how do we
yeah,
do this?
yeah. So I tell this to all the teens who come to me, and I tell the parents also that, and I tell the children actually. I said, see, your house it's not like a hotel or a boarding and lodging that you stay, you get free food, room service, beds are made, and all of that. And I think that the responsibility is with the parents that you start off from a young age, with small chores. But if you haven't done that so far, and suddenly during the teen years, you wake up and you decide that your teen has to help you, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. But I think the way you explain it to them, say that, okay, these are, your responsibilities. This is something that, the mom does. And I think everybody needs to pitch in. So they can't just see the mom doing something and the father not doing something, or the father doing something, whereas, one son is not, one child is not doing anything. So it doesn't work that way. So I think the first thing would be is to start off at a young age. But if it is with teens, you are going to meet with some resistance, definitely. But I think you need to ignore that and tell them that, this is what it is. It's not like, obviously explain it to them nicely, because otherwise they're going to sulk more. But that is something that you have to be prepared. Sharanya, I think just start off by having the conversation more than telling them, do this, do this. I think the tone in which you tell them, I think that is going to be super important. And tell them, I'd like you to contribute a little more around the house, because, I don't have the bandwidth. I'm also working, or I'm tired, or something like that. Start with very simple things. Don't like put on like 100 things on their plate, and then they're definitely not going to do even a single one of them. But maybe something small. And I think have that conversation and look at it like you're asking them for help. Say that, I'm not actually in a position to do this, and it would be great if you could help me a little more around the house. So the way you put it across, I think, is going to be very important. And it's very important for all children to help around. So if, parents have kids who are not helping at home, please, start getting them to do a little more around the house. I think that's very, very important. Yeah, I hope I answered that, Sharanya. Yeah. Okay. Ankita, you have a question? Yeah, you're on mute still, Ankita.
Yeah.
Hi, am I audible now?
Yes, you are. You are.
Yeah. Hi, Sana.
Yeah,
First
hi.
of all, thank you for the amazing session. And
Most welcome.
my actually, it's not a question. I just wanted to know, like, sometimes I feel that
Mm-hmm.
like it's a very good concept of having a healthy communication with the children and all. But
Right.
sometimes I feel that they are already, programmed that okay, it is going to be a lecture session, and they're already shut before we
Mm-hmm.
could get
Mm-hmm.
into the conversation. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes that becomes very, very tricky, to
Mm-hmm.
get into the mode where I don't understand what is going inside, and
Mm-hmm.
because I feel it's already shut, and it's like going out as a lecture or a
Right.
piece of advice. But
Right.
as a mother of a teen, I usually
Mm-hmm.
go for, a connection, a healthy, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
basically no sense
Mm-hmm.
conversation to create
Mm-hmm.
that connect. So I really find a struggle over there because sometimes I
Okay.
notice it's already shut.
Right.
So
Okay. Yeah, that's a very good question, Ankita, because I think if you go with that intent of, like you are doing in your job, okay, I have these things, I have to, kind of, I have point one, two, three, and this is what I would want to discuss with you. That's a surefire recipe for disaster. Let me tell you that it's not going to work, right? So I think what is important is when you spend time with your children, right? Like with your teen, for example, you have, how old is your child?
she is 13-year-old.
Okay. So just at like that brink of, like just getting into
Yeah.
teenage years. So good luck with that. But yeah, but I think what is important is not to make it seem like you're going and telling her that, I want to have this conversation and this is what we're going to be talking about. This is the agenda, like you would do in your job. No, that's not what is going to work. I think what will really work is trying to pick up and understand her interests and taking her, out, maybe for like to the park or to for a movie or a coffee date or something like that, right? And when you do that and when you are generally over, like in the course of
Mhm.
regular conversation, when you start slipping in these and ask, okay, what do you think about this? and maybe we should try something like this. What are your thoughts on that? Trust me, even if she doesn't speak, a lot of it is something that will be registering
Okay.
subconsciously. So you need to, that is the way you have a conversation. So when I mean healthy conversations, I don't mean that you go and tell them, okay, come, today we're going to talk about this point 1, 2, 3, this is our agenda. No, not at all. In fact, learn to spend time with them outside of like the home environment, because usually when they
Yeah.
come back from school, the first thing that we do is, okay, how was your day, what did you do this, and most often they're not going to tell you what they did. They're already tired, they're already fed up, we don't know what kind of a day they've had in school, right? So I think when you are spending that quality time with your child or your teen now, for example, I think when you go out, maybe for a walk, maybe for a stroll, or you're talking about the music she likes, or some friend or some show that she's watched, I think then when you slip it in, I think she will be more receptive.
Helps.
Yeah.
Thanks a
Okay.
lot, Sahana.
No problem. No problem. Okay. So I think we have a question here from Lakshmi. At times, teenagers like to be treated as an adult and an equal, and at times they brood and sulk like a child. So it feels like a whiplash with their mood swings. How to navigate through this? Very interesting and a nice question, Lakshmi. So thanks for asking. Yes, that's very, very understandable, because I think all of us being parents to teens, we go through this, right? Where on one hand they want to be like feel all responsible, and thing on the other hand they're so typically they will brood and sulk when there is something going on and they're not actually able to process and express what they're feeling. So there must have been something that has happened in school, or something that they're not able to quite articulate what has happened. So even if they're 13, 14, 15, whatever it is, they still need that they still need their parent to talk to them about their emotions. Because the first thing that we will do is, if they come and tell us something, this happened in school today, mom, or something like that, our first thing is, okay, I think this is how you should handle it, this is what you should do. We go into that advisory mode. Instead of that, I think if you focus a little more on the emotions, and also it's okay that if they're brooding and sulking like a child for certain things, I think this indulge them, no, once in a while. It doesn't really matter. I mean, if it, there's something specific that, makes your child happy, and that the issue is not like such a big issue, and they're just being cranky for the sake of being cranky, it's okay. Just have fun, play along with them, give them a few extra hugs and cuddles, and I'm sure they'll be fine.
I think even as an adult, we also want to behave like children sometimes. So I
Totally.
don't know.
Absolutely. All of us need that, right?
Yeah. So we are at the top of the hour. I want to take this time to thank you so very much, Sahana,
You
for
know.
this wonderful session. I think we touched upon 10,000 different things, which are all super relevant for all of us as parents of teenagers. Really a great reminder that, it's okay. We are not
Absolutely.
alone. We are all in this
Absolutely.
together. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
reminding
Thank
us.
you for having
It's
me,
a
Anu.
beautiful journey of parenting as well. I think it's important to
Totally.
remind ourselves of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you
Thank you.
all also for being here on a Sunday evening on Republic Day when you could be napping.
Yes.
uh, yeah.
Yeah. Thank
Yes,
you.
yes,
Thank you for
yes.
having me, Anu. Thanks everybody
Thank
for joining
Thank you,
in.
It was a lovely
everyone.
session, as always, Sana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Puka.
you.
This was really good, Anu and Dolly. Really good session that you have organized. I look forward to
Thank
more
you.
such sessions from your team. Yeah.
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sahana, very
Thank
nice.
you. Thank you, Pratima.
Thank you, Sahana. It's very nice and a very
Thank you,
learning
Tab.
session for us.
Thank you.
I'm not surprised that you have a lot of fans, Sahana.
Yeah, no, no, not at all. All my
Mm.
well-wishers always, my support system.
It was, it
Thank you,
is actually,
Sana. It was really,
Thank you.
really worth listening, and a very, very apt message for all parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you so
you,
much.
the coordinator also.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.